So that's what I want you to take away from this conference. The fact that you have, to get organised, to help get organised, to be involved in the political process. You must do that. There's only one choice you have. Which way are you going to do it? You can do it in your own country, following David Duke's example and probably on a lower level, making yourself relevant to ordinary people in their homeland and starting to build something. You can't create a new party tomorrow. It's too early for that. There's too many people in America who are on our side who haven't quite reached the understanding that has to be done yet, I don't think. You're only laying the foundation stones on which to build a new party. But the foundation stones are applying aspects of our ideology to what ordinary people's lives are about and showing them that we can make a positive difference to their lives. That is where you are now, in fact, for the next few years. You can either get down to that, or if your circumstances are such, perhaps you're a millionaire living 15 miles from anybody else on some giant ranch. Okay, well, throw money at David, and please throw money at the British National Party. Actually, you can't throw money at the British National Party, quite seriously, it's up against the law. But you can, as my colleague will be telling you tomorrow, throw money at a group called Civil Liberty, which helps members of the British National Party, and that's within the law. It's bizarre, but there you are. The law's an ass. If you happen to have a name like Fellstrom or whatever, and you're not really involved in any party over here, then help the Swedes, because that's your ethnic roots. That's where a little bit of your heart should still lie. If you go back to that country, you'll find it does. If you've got a German name, then adopt something in Germany that you can help and push. Either help it here or help it over there. But don't think that just by reading books and books and books and talking about the same issues to your same little circle of people, don't think you're making a blind bit of difference, because you're not. That's the God's honest truth. And to be honest with you, while I want desperately to see a proper party growing out of things here in America over the next few years, or a positive bloc which aims to influence one or other of both of the parties which dominate American politics, doesn't really matter. While I want to see the American movement becoming politicized and touching down and making contact with ordinary people's lives, while I want to see that, I think that probably the crisis will be upon us before we've been able to do it effectively enough. And it's going to be more effective to help our comrades in Europe, and actually it's more effective to help people like the Front National and the Vlaams Belang than it is to help the British National Party, because we left it until 6 years ago to get our acts together, and it takes a long time to catch up. So look and help somewhere, because I've no doubts that when the revolution comes, which is going to sweep away this utter nightmare that everyone in this room, bar the very oldest, has lived through, and which our children are condemned to, when that revolution comes, it's going to come in Europe. And it's going to come very suddenly in Europe. As long as we're organised for it, it's not going to be a slow, steady progression. It doesn't happen like that. It happens in great chunks of the population. Bang! 1 month they don't support you. The next month, if you've done your homework right and circumstances are right, then they're prepared to support you. It's happened in Europe time and time again. 1789, the French Revolution. That then swept over vast areas of Europe. In 1848, the liberal nationalist revolutions started in a few places. And within months, little princes and kings were swept aside all over Europe. 1917, with the Bolshevik revolution, in inverted commas. The Bolshevik coup d'etat against the White Russians, of course, is what it really should be called, as I'm sure you know. But that then spread all over huge parts of Europe and almost took the whole lot within a few years. And the various nationalist, fascist, whatever revolutions or counter-revolutions of the 30s. 1 minute they were there, not there, the next minute they weren't there. Or 1989, when the wall came down. And I've spoken to young Germans, I taught young Germans English who were there when the wall came down, and they said that a few weeks before, we had no idea it was going to change. We hated it. Everyone knew it was a lie. The bureaucrats were living a lie. The policemen who enforced their laws were living a lie. We had to say we agreed with it. Our teachers had to say we had to believe in it. We were all living a lie, but we thought it was going to go on forever. And then in Leipzig, a few Germans, fewer people than you have here, decided they'd had enough. And they started chanting on the street, Wir sind das Volk. We are the people. Not the Communist Party. You're not the people, our masters. We are the people. That's what they started chanting. And those handful of people didn't know if they were going to be arrested and carted off to the Gulag or what would happen. But their masters had lost nerve for a short space of time, just as our masters will lose nerve at some point for a short space of time when a combination of the energy crisis and the debt crisis and this appalling Middle Eastern, endless, sandy, dusty Vietnam death trap, they take your boys and our boys into it. At some point that will lead to a crisis for them. And if there's a small number of people like those Germans in Leipzig who start it, then for once they won't have the guts to arrest them and cart them away. And history will turn very rapidly, because those few people in Leipzig became over the next few weeks people in all the other East German cities as well, including Karl-Marx-Stadt, now once again Chemnitz. Because just for a short while, ordinary Germans were motivated to stand up to their masters and demand their rights as a people. And they started off demanding their rights as the people, das Volk. And it was just one carload of young West German nationalists who went across the border, because you could get that way, it's the other way back, you couldn't come. They went across there to one of those demos, and 4 of them started chanting, when the others were chanting, Wir sind das Volk, we are the people, which was merely a protest against the communist regime, they started chanting, Wir sind ein Volk, we are one people, which was a protest against the division of Germany, and in fact the entire division of Europe. And around them the crowd looked, and they copied them. And that's why they ended up, all of them, hundreds upon thousands of them, more than the Stasi could possibly machine gun, even if they wanted to, chanting, Wir sind ein Volk, we want our Germany back. And that's the kind of moment at which history is made. And those people, I've spoken to the youngsters who were there, they said, we didn't know if we were going to be shot or crushed by a tank trundling around the corner. But just for that moment, we didn't care. Before we were scared, after we'd be too scared to do it now. But just for a short while, we weren't scared anymore. And that's what we're organising for in Europe. Because there's going to come a time, just a short time, when our people won't be scared. And they'll be prepared to do something. And they will change the world. And when it happens, it will be over within a matter of months, if we win. If it doesn't, then it's a long, long, slow goodbye to our people and all the things that we love. So we try desperately to find one little pocket they'll leave us alone in. And of course they won't leave us alone anywhere, because we face an utterly totalitarian enemy which wants the entire world. We don't want the entire world. We don't want the Middle East. They can keep it. They can have their Islamic beliefs there to their heart's content. We don't want China. They can do whatever the Chinese want to do. I feel very sorry for the Tibetans, but Tibet is not our issue. American and British boys shouldn't die to free Tibet. If the Tibetans want their country back, they can fight for it. So we don't want the entire world. We don't want Africa. Unless they all die of AIDS, in which case it's one settlement option, but otherwise we don't want it. I don't want to take up the white man's burden again. My grandfather's older brother was at the Battle of Omdurman, fighting the whirling dervishes there in 1888 or something like that. He got a spear in the arm. He was one of the Brits wounded, one of the few wounded in an industrial scale slaughter of third worlders. But he got nothing out of it. My family got nothing out of it. That imperialist adventure only brought wealth to a tiny handful in the ruling class, and it provided an excuse to flood our country with third worlders in due course. We don't want that. We only want back the parts of the world which are ours by right. We only want back our Europe, but I'll tell you this, if we get our Europe back, then there's one other part, 2 other parts of the world, 3 other parts of the world, which we regard as ours by right, because it's been so long. The little and beautiful islands of New Zealand, where the Lord of the Rings was filmed. We want to keep those. That wonderful, vast subcontinent of Australia. That's ours. It's our people's, and we're going to keep that. And in particular, when we take Britain back, we'll make sure that the Australians of our descent, English, Scots, Irish and Welsh, that they get to keep their Australia.